The 2018 film Suspiria is a remake of the 1977 Italian horror film of the same name from director Dario Argento. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but for some context, I've never been that crazy about the original. It certainly has some excellent aspects like the cinematography and music, but the whole package just doesn't do that much for me. This version comes from director Luca Guadagnino, who has been directing since the late 1990s, but just broke out last year with Call Me By Your Name, a film that won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay and was nominated for 3 more, including Best Picture and Best Actor. Don't go in expecting an experience like Call Me By Your Name, or for that matter the original Suspiria. However, I enjoyed this a lot more than both of those films. Guadagnino's remake is certainly stylish, but in a much different way than Argento's original, as it mostly lacks that film's garish lighting. The muted color palette seems to be an intentional departure to set this version apart. Instead, the shot composition and particularly the editing stand out. Editor Walter Fasano has collaborated with Guadagnino several times, including on Call Me By Your Name, and he gets to show off here with some visually stunning hallucinatory sequences. Sayambu Mukdipram, the cinematographer from Call Me By Your Name, returned as well. He's also worked on the excellently shot Palme d'Or winner Uncle Boon Mi, Who Can Recall His Past Lives. Shot on 35mm film, the cinematography here is definitely one of the film's strong suits, especially in the extensive and elaborate dance sequences. At times it feels very modern, but there are some zooms and dissolves that give it a 70s vibe, matching the film's setting. There are also little flourishes like stylized subtitles, which it seems like you hardly ever see and I wish more filmmakers would experiment with. Dakota Johnson stars and she's good enough, but I couldn't help but think a top-tier actress in her place could have really elevated Suspiria into something special. The highlight acting-wise is clearly Tilda Swinton, who plays 3 roles. One requires extremely heavy makeup and is still pretty substantial. The makeup on her is very realistic, and maybe this is just because I knew about it going in, but it did feel a little off. The very enjoyable score is from Radiohead lead singer Tom York, and this is the first time he's composed the soundtrack to a feature film. There are some traditional songs with vocals that are relatively standard fare for his solo stuff, but some more atmospheric music as well. Parts feel like an 80s film score, and York did specifically cite Blade Runner as an influence. Suspiria is quite long at over 2.5 hours, which is almost unheard of for a horror film. I didn't mind the length as it almost always kept my interest, but many critics have complained about it being too long. I can't necessarily recommend this to those just looking for straightforward horror or even fans of the original. This is much more firmly in art house territory. However, despite not being a standard genre film, it's still not for the faint of heart as it does get pretty graphic and intense. The critical response has been decidedly divisive and it only has a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, a massive drop off from Call Me By Your Name's score of 94. Suspiria cost $20 million to make and has only made under $200,000 so far, but numbers for the wide release have not come in yet. That'll be it for this review. Please don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.